Continental calendar of Nas on March 4, 1420. For the flames of the Great Stallion War are burning on the continent of Nas. The continent is engulfed in flames. Numerous lives have turned to ashes, and there is no being that can stop the Demon King's army. Only despair exists in that place. To everyone's surprise, a warrior who stands against the army suddenly appears looking at the screen of his monitor. While playing, our protagonist explains that this was more or less the premise of the game Paradiso. This game was a virtual reality RPG, where the player fights against the demon army as a warrior to become a king who can protect his territory. After returning from work, our protagonist spent all his free time playing. Being an older person, the young man was simply an expert in mastering all the knowledge about the nature of characters and things related to the game. The man explains that he never lost the title of the #1 blog in Paradiso information for 10 years, but became so ill that he could no longer continue with it. Even worse, his illness. The young man ended up dying from overwork and playing too much, while thinking that he died at 30 years old without even having the chance to go on a date. The Bonwick startled next to a girl with bluish hair. The girl, looking at her chubby lord, asks if he had a nightmare. For some reason the lord seems desperate, looking in all directions trying to understand what was happening. The man asks who the girl was and, apologizing, inquires where he was. However, the girl does not understand her lord's question, and a sense of doubt settles throughout the house. Our protagonist Jared was checking his statistics, and the young man realizes he had an abnormal condition of high obesity, and looking in the mirror is shocked. The boy also notices that due to his condition his lifespan had decreased by 20 years, and with these statistics the body he was in must be of the lowest class. Sitting in an armchair, the boy says that for now he would try to calm down and think better about the situation. Looking into the mirror, he thinks that his name was Shin Tong, but that was in his past life, because he died and reincarnated as a young obese lord named Jared. The boy thinks he was sure he reincarnated in Paradiso Online, because he could see the game's user interface, so that meant this was his reality. Jared goes into complete despair, because even this time his life would end some, because in 10 years the Great Stallion War will happen. And most importantly, in 5 years there will be severe drought and famine, and various natural disasters will occur. Sweating, the boy thinks that when the Great War of Mass erupts, all nations and territories will be forced to participate in the war, and being a terrible lord he will die. Irritated, the boy questions how insignificant this character is, because even he, Shintai, the encyclopedia of this game, did not know him. However, from fidgeting angrily in his armchair, the young man dubit his large and immense weight breaks it, collapsing to the floor on the ground. The boy states that when he looked at Jared's memories he realized that the boy grew up as a slightly effeminate young man, but getting up he thinks that there was still hope and he just needed to lose a little weight, because this time he had the memory of his past life, and this is an advantage only he had, so he could use this advantage like a bug already standing. Jared thinks that this was the overwhelming advantage of knowledge, and he could have a better future than anyone else if he used it correctly. Chad thinks that since it's like this he would become the strongest warrior who will become a great king after unifying in the world, and that was his goal in this life. After some time we see the same girl as before with a duster cleaning the dust from some books, saying she would clean well so her lord could use the office. Suddenly a huge noise can be heard from the office, and the woman, upon realizing it, sees her lord violently opening the door and calling her name. The girl, promptly wanting to help, responds to him, but the man starts searching the entire place for something, and Hayes asks what he was looking for. The boy explains that it was the memento his father had left him before he died, and irritated with the former owner of the body who put something so important anywhere, Hayes goes to the desk, opens the drawer and takes out an artifact, saying that this was what her lord was looking for. He kindly approaches the girl, taking the artifact from her hand and thanking her. Hayes is extremely happy to help her master, asking if the young man needed anything else from her. However, the only thing the young boy asks is for her to leave the place. For some reason Hayes becomes suspicious, stating that she could sense something different about her lord. This different thing was that he was now full of energy, and the maid becomes extremely excited about it. Leaving the place, the girl starts talking about how she will also get excited just like her lord, picking up a necklace. Boy explains that this is the inheritance from his father Viscount Barrett, and also a useful artifact that could help him in magical growth. Staring at the artifact. The boy thinks that now he will destroy it and thus begins to use magic on the object, causing it to crack. He thinks that this is the only way for a miserable young man like him to have the fourth magical class, and so the necklace begins to float and continues to break apart. However, he compliments that he would not be able to invoke it with the little mana he had, and thus the object finally shatters, and now the service of the artifact is the only way for him to obtain this benefit, and a black sphere begins to emerge in its place. The boy thinks he is doing this to be able to evolve quickly and hopes his father forgives him. While his hair begins to blow from the strong energy in the place, the wave of black mask starts to turn into a whirlwind, and a beast begins to come out of that mass and expand after taking shape. The monster questions who the foolish human was that had summoned it, and Jared thinks that it was a being that could only be known once in a lifetime. Isabella, the cheerful spirit, and the girl starts to laugh in the direction of our protagonist, revealing her entire demonic and strange appearance. She questions the foolish human what the desire was that made him summon her, and Jared thinks that Isabella will be his first step on the path to success. Jared begins to try to calm down to avoid panicking because Isabella does not like cowards and that woman likes adventurers. He also thinks that if the woman leaves he will have no other chance to become powerful in this life. The man, then convinced of his thoughts, affirms with all his words that he wants to obtain
territory management and seeking future possibilities, and Isabella agrees, but in return the demon questions what was the most precious thing Jared had to offer and return, and that the boy should think about it now, because everything has a price. Suddenly a contract forms in front of our protagonist, and taking it Isabella says she would give the mind's eye to the boy, but would take the most precious thing from him. She explains that if it is money she will take it all, if it is honor he will become a slave, and if it is family she will eat them. The boy realizes that Isabella rid his mind, discovering what his most precious possession was, while stating that this was the curse of the evil spirit he had heard so much about. Suddenly, for some reason, the boy smiles and Isabella panics, questioning herself about what was happening with her lips as they were pouting. Smiling, Jared says he was thinking of something he considers extremely valuable to himself, but not relevant enough to affect him, being a useless treasure. He also states that it was difficult to keep this thought in his mind, but he managed to make an effort. The most precious thing he possesses is the first kiss of Shin Tapon, a 34-year-old man who died single, and hearing this Isabella begins to think she did not want that. The demon tries to flee, asking what kind of lunatic thinks their most precious thing is their first kiss. The contract was already sealed and a force begins to pull her, opening his hands. The boy thinks it is incredible to think that he will give his first kiss to an evil spirit, and even against her will Isabella will have to comply, even trying to appear unwilling. The boy asks for God to bless that country unless the eternal contract with Isabella began. That day in the mansion's corridors, two maids were discussing because they found the way their lord was acting strange, as he had been locked away until recently. He was a person who found life very difficult and boring because he had such a repetitive daily routine and only seemed happy when he was eating. Then Hayes can be seen running. One of the maids questions why the Lord was in the basement since no one ever visited there, but Hay rushes them, asking them to move out of the way with a stack of pickers in her hands. The girl keeps running and one of the girls asks if she needs help, but she says no, she can handle it on her own. The light-haired maid says that Hayes is very delicate and doesn't even mind always being mistreated, and they both feel sorry for the young girl. Hayes finally arrives in the room with the books and papers, telling her lord that she had brought the documents about his territory and vassals. For some reason Jared asked the girl to stop right where she is starting to analyze her statistics. He realizes her loyalty is rated as S, and most importantly the young girl has many special tendencies. Using his new ability, the boy thinks that for a maid she had amazing qualities and would definitely make her a healer. Jared also sees that the young girl has an unrequited love and has been in love with someone for more than 10 years. But Lamb's not being able to fulfill it as he will be busy. Our protagonist starts looking at all the papers and studying the information about the territory. Suddenly Hayes, who seemed to be restless about something, apologizes to the boy, and the boy does not understand why she was saying that. Hayes explains that every time her lord needs her she should do her job correctly. If he was analyzing the papers she had done something wrong. Jared, looking at the girl, begins to recall the memories of the former owner of the body, who used to hit the girl when she didn't do the job correctly. Thinking about this, the boy curses the former owner of the body because he was very arrogant and handed most of his work to Hayes, and if anything went wrong he took it out on her. In his mind, the boy states that although it wasn't him who did this, he would make amends, and Jared starts to approach the girl, calling her name. Our protagonist raises his hand, and the girl prepares herself as if she knew she would get slapped. However, surprisingly, Jared hugs the girl, apologizing for everything he had done. The boy apologizes for all the mistakes he made with the girl, saying that it must have been hard for her, and thanks her for not complaining and staying with him despite everything. Our protagonist also says that she will never have to see his pathetic side again because he has had a complete change of heart. Smiling kindly, Jared asks if the girl could trust him once more to become a good lord, and Hayes remains silent. The girl suddenly says that she feels very sorry for Jared. While continuing in his embrace, Hayes explains that she is apologizing because she felt so moved that she couldn't stop crying. Continuing to be shy, desperate, the young girl says she will stay by the boy's side forever, and the boy thanks her for forgiving him and trusting him. Shurna thinks that now he was Jared, so he had to bear all the sins his former self committed. After some time, a huge table with several chairs set up can be seen. Hayes is looking at Jared, stating that it wasn't right, no matter how much she thought about it. The girl says that the boy will faint if he only eats herbs and vegetables like that, and the boy continues to eat only plants. Our protagonist thinks that for a pig like him he needed to do this if he wanted to lose some weight. The young man explains that in the game Paradiso these vegetables had an effect to trick his satiety level, but even knowing this vegetable diet tastes so horrible that no one would willingly eat them, and all the food there seems spoiled. The system appears informing about some benefits the boy was receiving for eating vegetables and healthy foods, and Jared says that incredibly you could feel the fat in his belly slowly disappearing, but even with all this it was still very difficult and he wanted to vomit, and trying to hold his mouth with his own hands to avoid spitting out the food. Hayes asks the boy to eat it, placing a beautiful steak on the table, and the girl explains that she prepared this vegan steak as a precaution. The maid explains that she learned to make it because it is good for a healthy diet, but before her lord never ate it, so it was always thrown away, but now it would be different. Crying with happiness, Jared once again curses his former self, questioning how the boy could have mistreated an angel like that girl. While savoring the steak, the boy felt like an angel, thinking that the food was delicious, and this was expected from an A-level cook. Our protagonist begins to think that he would needed to rebirth himself. However, the demon Isabella suddenly appears, ordering the boy to return the mind's eye immediately, and the boy is startled. The piglet questions why the demon was still there. Isabella asks how a foolish human dared to deceive her. The demon says she will keep bothering the boy forever until she recovers her power, while the boy just accepts, saying it won't be easy. 10 years ago, in a memory, a person can be seen knocking on the door, calling his lord and asking him to open the door. Immediately, a man with black hair and a scar on his eyes says is a tragedy that the previous lord has passed away. However, the soldier suggests to the boy that he should overcome the past and start thinking about the future. The man also says that they would fight together in this difficult moment and keeps knocking insistently on the door. However, young Jerry continues sitting on the floor, resting his hands on his knees while crying sad about the whole situation. The boy remains in his place without moving, just crying and lamenting his father's death. Back to our protagonist mansion. The present time, someone is saying that suddenly the lord had called them. A man who was missing an eye and has red hair is drinking and questioning if the lord was preparing a New Year's party. The man continues to drink his beverage and looking to the side notices two maids there. The drunk goes up to the two, saying good morning to Hayes and grabbing both girls in his arms. Hayes says good morning to Grash, but is uncomfortable with the whole situation, and the man says he likes the girl's positive side. The drunk can only think that he couldn't understand what such a beauty wanted with a fat lord, but surely he would have heard. The same man we saw in the flashback is arguing with Grigas, asking what he was doing there since he had already told the boy not to hit on the women. Hayes calls a man Lacey's, and he says that a lord's knight should not behave inappropriately, and for some reason Grouse is surprised to see the man changing his expression to anger. Grouse asks if Luz really thinks he has the right to lecture the chief of Kia's public security. He also says that it seemed the man still didn't know his place even after being defeated by the Lord, and Leeks gets extremely irritated hearing that. Going up to the boy, a soldier faces the drunk, challenging him to say that again, but the boy just mocks, calling him an old man. However, an unknown elderly man appears, ordering the two to stop, because the Lord would arrive soon. La is turning around, calls the old man Oren while showing respect. But unlike him, Grasses leaves angrily, saying he couldn't believe a toothless dove and a retired old man could still step inside the Lord's mansion, and they were both disgraces. Seeing the man leave, Lacus questions how an arrogant brat like him became a security chief, but Urin says that the two of them couldn't do anything about it. They head to the meeting place, and a long table with several people seated can be seen. Some of the nobles who were talking find it strange, stating that they can't believe the Lord had called a meeting. They are also impressed that Jaren was reading the reports they had just delivered, something the man never did. Gruss continues drinking and then slams the bottle on the table, questioning why his lord was reading a report since it didn't suit him. Grasses tells his lord that the young man should end this meeting now and drink with him because the boy brought a rare liquor, and bets his lord would love it for some reason. Upon hearing this, Jared becomes interested, gripping the papers tighter and repeating the word liquor. Gruss continues offering the drink, and Lees just observes, thinking that this scoundrel seduces the Lord every time the meeting happens, so that the Lord ends up fooling around. The determined swordsman stands up and declares that he will stop Grigas regardless of the consequences, all for the glory of Kia. However, Jared, with a completely serious expression, questions if the red-haired man is crazy, and asks how he dares to come to a meeting while drunk. Neither Likas nor Grigas understand the Lord's question, and the man starts laughing, asking his lord not to be sulky because as they hadn't drunk together in a long time. But suddenly a spell called Magic Missile is activated, and a beam of blue energy breaks the liquor bottle Gruss was holding. The drunk is in shock, just watching his alcohol spill on the floor, and Jared says that this time he will turn a blind eye to the man's degrading act. Irritated, Grassa says that it didn't matter. If the Lord was his superior, he wouldn't forgive someone who used magic against him. However, Jared just ignores him, throwing some papers on the table and saying they would move on to the next topic. Calling Grigas by name, Jared asks if the chief of public security is satisfied with the wealth he has accumulated by abusing his authority. Now standing, the drunk is completely confused, and Jared continues, saying that he had harmed many inhabitants of the territory because he was blinded by greed. The Lord adds that the citizens could not trust the government of CRI because various abuses and crimes were being committed against innocents. Finally, our protagonist concludes that he also heard Grigas has been taking the Lord's subordinates without permission, and thus Jar invokes a fire spell, but Lord states that for all the other sins the drunk has committed, he will continue attacking the man even after burning Graces his face. Completely desperate, the man tries to flee the place by running, but immediately Fireball is launched against his back, hitting him squarely. Gruss can only fall to the ground unconscious and defeated, and Jared says that he really wanted to kill the man, but to uphold the law, he will stop there. Our protagonist tells everyone there that on that day Grasses will be removed from his position as chief of public security, and the Lord will be thoroughly investigating all the corruption that has been happening in that territory. All the other people at the table immediately kneel, apologizing to their master and stating that they have sinned gravely. Lacey's just observes the situation, thinking that our protagonist had defeated Gruss was very strong in battle, and it was defeated with just one strike. Looking at the Lord, he also adds that this dignity is the same as the previous Lord Viscount Barrett. Our protagonist calls Lays, saying he would announce the man as the new chief of security for Kia, and the man is confused, but before he could refuse, Jared asks if he would disobey an order from the Lord, and Lees just kneels, saying he would comply promptly. The blonde boy also says that this is an order from the Lord, and
someone is desperately shouting that someone couldn't do something. A poor peasant says he won't be able to work anymore if that person takes his money, begging the man to forgive him, but the bandit tells the poor peasant to shut up because that's why he should have paid the street tax when it was charged, and he should just stay quiet. One of the bandit groups says they haven't seen Mr. Grasses collecting taxes lately, questioning if he just went on vacation somewhere. The man also tells the white haired bandit not to spend that money even if Grigas hasn't come to collect it. Suddenly a knocking sound at the door, as if someone was calling, echoes through the place, and the bandit chief asks one of his subordinates to go see what it was. A bald man goes to the door, opening it slightly and asking who it was. There in front was our protagonist saying hello. The bald man calls the boy a piglet, but before he realizes it, a punch quickly hits his jaw, sending some teeth flying. After the punch, the bandit is thrown across the house, and all the others in the group are shocked by the sudden situation. Laws is extremely irritated, questioning how a bandit like that could insult his lord, asking if the boy wanted to die. Jared tries to calm the situation, saying that he didn't mind the insult and it was okay. However, these are the people who are collecting illegal taxes from citizens and merchants. Returning to his serious expression, the lord orders Lacey's to capture all the bandits and not let any of them escape. With an extremely satisfied expression, the soldier cracks his knuckles, saying he will obey his lord's orders with great pleasure. He states that this will be swift justice carried out by the new chief of security, and the bandits, hearing that, are incredulous, realizing that Gruss had been defeated. After teaching the bandits a lesson in the back of the place where they were, the bandit chief is seen sneaking out the bag of belongings. However, behind him, our protagonist opens the door, questioning where the man thought he was going, and the man is startled, throwing the bag into the air. Abandoning all the money, the bandit tries to escape by running through the snow, but Jared quickly uses his magic missile ability, striking him several times. After the whole situation, a group of citizens thanks the Lord and Lacey's for their services. A group of soldiers takes the chain bandits to prison, and the citizens are relieved, as they were wondering when these scoundrels would be punished. Lacus starts a speech informing all the people of Kbaya that the Lord admitted his previous mistakes and declared that he would take care of the citizens with all his strength from now on. He also says that getting rid of those criminals was just the first step, and the bandit chief thinks he couldn't believe Gruss was caught. Laz continues his speech, and thus we see the peasants receiving food as an apology and mercy from the Lord. Even Bard was sitting at the place cheering everyone up, and Likas concludes his speech by asking everyone to be grateful to the Lord for their whole lives. After that, Jared and his companion are riding through the city on horseback, being greeted with applause from the citizens. After returning to the mansion, back in the council meeting room, it is explained that the citizens began to see the territory and the Lord in a positive light. Lacus adds that the people who supported the Lord started to appear, so his plan had been a success, and Jared says that their efforts are paying off. Our protagonist asks if Lacus is doing well in his new position and with his